I'm making a series of videos. This is the first one. The goal of these videos is to make you more skeptical of nonsense and develop a knowledge base of biology that will help you in your daily life, and particularly if you have any sports or health goals. We're going to be looking at this study today, which is a review article, Fruit and Vegetable Consumption and Mortality from All Causes, Cardiovascular Disease and Cancer. Something that I overlooked certainly in my life was my consumption of organic foods. I used to be 63 kilograms and I hated being that small. Over the course of 4 years, I bulked up to 85 kg, which I'm at just now, and I'm fairly lean. But regrettably, for the vast majority, my only considerations were protein and calorie intake, which I think a lot of young men and women fall into. It's a trap because it is going to affect your health and it's going to take years off your life, which is what this study highlights. I think it's a great study. Recently, my sister has made me aware that rates of bowel disease are increasing, especially in young male populations. There are countless evils to blame for this, but here I'm going to highlight the importance of eating your fruit and veg produce as a way to fight back against all of these processed foods that you're eating, which everyone falls victim to. So the intro of this paper, it really just focuses on cardiovascular disease and cancer, because these are the top two global causes of death. They contribute to almost 60% of all deaths. So this is relevant when you're talking about all-cause mortality, obviously, if it causes most of the deaths. And the paper mentions 6 pathways as to how eating your fruit and veg reduces this risk of cardiovascular disease and cancer. So the first one I'm going to briefly mention is the excretion of sodium, which can lower your blood volume and your blood pressure. If you can imagine, you've got less salt and your blood will be pumping around at less of a pressure because there's less volume in the system. And this is because of the high levels of calcium, potassium and magnesium in fruit and vegetables. You also get improved endothelial function, mainly from the nitrates in these plants, which typically, on the same train of thought, would expand your blood vessels, allowing for less pressure build-up. And obviously blood pressure is generally a bad thing. It leads to so many cardiovascular diseases because of this pressure building up. It can damage the vessels through countless mechanisms. Antioxidants are something that I just think of as sponges for harmful molecules. Really, they're electron donors, but that's more physics and chemistry. So go ask someone else about that. But reduced inflammation also occurs, which is a lot of these autoimmune diseases, the pathology of it revolves around inflammation. For example, Crohn's disease. And if you're reducing inflammation, it's just generally a good thing. Higher fibre intake. Now, there is so many layers to fibre intake that it's something you should really look into if you are interested in it. But I'll just summarise it as you get soluble fibre and you get insoluble fibre. And both of them expand the volume of your stool, so that if you think about it, it's kind of like a cushion, right? And it means that less of the harmful oxidants in your food and your stool, your digested material, are going to come into contact with your surface of your lining of your digestive system less if there's more volume. And then you get this insoluble fibre, which does also add to the mass of the stool. But it also acts as a food source for your microbiome in the large intestine, which you'll have probably heard about if you're interested in these sort of things. It can contribute to the gut-brain axis, and mainly what we're looking at for a health outcome in the gut-brain axis is an increase in short-chain fatty acid production. And that's generally a marker of a healthy gut biome. Obviously, there's a lot of nuance to that. But mainly, the main thing that eating fruit and veg does is it causes satiation. So you want to eat less. But these foods obviously have lower calories and a lower glycemic index than most of these processed foods. You can imagine eating a pizza. Domino's pizza, I think you can get close to 2,000 calories in a large Domino's mozzarella pizza, which is just your daily food intake if you're a woman. That's one pizza. You could have about 5 bowls of salad. Obviously that's not going to be very good for you either, but you wouldn't even be halfway. You would be about 1,200 calories and you'd be far more full eating 5 bowls of salad. But the reason this is such a big factor for reducing all-cause mortality is that most of the population, you look around, most of the population are actually overweight. And this is a huge burden on your health outcomes. So really what I'm saying is eat your fruit and vegetables. Really what the paper's saying is eat your fruit and vegetables to reduce your calorie intake. It might seem like a roundabout way of doing things, but it is obviously a huge factor. So let's look at the methods of this review article. If you don't know what a review article is, it's basically where you can see this top number here, 7,417. That's how many papers they found, individual studies. So you would have a study, I don't want to sound patronising, you'd have a study where you would find a group of people, feed them fruit and vegetables, for example, and see their health outcomes. Obviously that's super simplified, but they found 7,417 related articles. And then the Medline, Embase and Cochrane Library are just the databases that they found these on. Typically they want to keep these in here so that the study can be replicated. That's what the methods section in any study is for. I suppose this isn't a typical study, it's a review article, but it is a study. And then you can see the steps they took to lower the amount of studies they had. They obviously can't look through close to 10,000 studies. So they've brought it down to 25 relevant studies. And then it says here they excluded 9 because of the insufficient data for fruit and veg. So they've deemed these papers not reliable enough because they haven't included everything they've done in the methods section. And you end up getting 16 papers included in this study, which may not seem like a lot, but that leaves you with a staggering 833,000 participants that they're looking at between these 16 studies, and more than 56,000 deaths, which is important. Obviously, that's what the study is analysing. So let's look at the results here. The main results for this paper, I think, can be really summarised by this graph. And it says the hazard ratio of all-cause mortality. So the hazard ratio of 1 would be the standard that you're comparing it to. So if you're at 0 fruit and vegetables, the hazard ratio would be 1, which you can see if you extrapolate that line would lead to 1. And then you can see as you eat more fruit, it rapidly goes down at the start. The hazard ratio, when you go from 0 fruit and veg a day to 5 fruit and veg a day, you've cut your hazard ratio by, over 25%. And then you can further reduce it very slightly as you go towards 10. But you can see the line sort of flattens out. So each fruit and veg you're having past 5 is not quite as effective. There will be some slight benefits, but that's where eating your 5 a day comes from. That saying, because that's where you're going to get the most benefit, the most return for your efforts, I suppose. So fruits, surprisingly to me, fruits were seen to have a higher reduction in mortality, which is surprising because of the huge prevalence of type 2 diabetes. And this leads to lots of cardiovascular disease, which is obviously what is in the title of the study. 1 in 8 people adults in the US have type 2 diabetes. And obviously, with type 2 diabetes, you want to manage the glycemic index of the food you eat. Leading up to type 2 diabetes, you don't want to be eating foods that are going to spike your blood sugar, which obviously vegetables don't do as much as fruits. But there was a 1% improvement per fruit ate than vegetable ate per day. So why is this? Well, the review article hypothesized that this is because the term vegetables is broader among the studies. So you would be including things like potatoes and beans, which simply don't have as high a nutritional value as your typical salad vegetables. And yes, while we're looking at that, even though that's the case, the 1% improvement extra benefit from the fruit, it was not found to be statistically significant. But it was still surprising. So just to end the video, if you enjoy fitness and putting yourself in difficult situations, so do I. But my mum and my sister are slowly convincing me to take better care of my long-term health. So if you're someone who enjoys living life to the fullest, but you want to gain some insights into keeping healthy, but shaping your body for sport, but longevity also, then I suggest you keep an eye out for my future videos, because the plan is I'm going to work on one of these every day. Anyway, if you watch this, thank you very much.